Oh, there's the timer. Well, then I don't need
That's
my
an old picture of me.
Welcome, everybody.
Looks good.
I just want to say that was the perfect segue to what we're going to talk about next. I mean, we could not have planned this better. I think the universe had it out for us in a good way. So, interesting statistics. We are going to address some of the questions and elaborate on what you just heard. And can I just say for the record that I have heard all the future leader presentations. We're in good hands. We're in good hands. So, welcome everybody. I'm Nicole Meyer. I am your moderator. I am not going to introduce myself. If you want to know who I am, have a look. LinkedIn, or I just don't want to take time to introduce myself, but I am incredibly excited to moderate this panel, to chat with all of you and to talk about, frankly, leadership, the workforce of tomorrow, what does it look like, and the future of talent. And talent, that's you. I mean, this session is about you and for you. I hope you will ask us lots of provocative questions. Ask away. Look, our goal today is to help you equip for the workforce of the future. We have been hearing now for a day and a half about all the changes that are happening in our industry, technological changes, workforce changes, shifts in mindsets, right? And hopefully today you're going to hear about each one of those, and of course, AI. And what does that mean for all of us? Because I don't know about you, but we all think about it. And then again, the presentation we just had, I think gives a good introduction. I don't know that it's an introduction for any of you, but it certainly highlights what people are thinking about. So look, despite AI's looming influence over all of us, we're also going to talk about human skills. And that's what I think I was most struck by. The research that you all did to identify, was it 84% strategic thinking, 59% data literacy. The good news is you can learn these things. These are all teachable, trainable skill sets that I think will play a huge role in the future. So with that, I'm actually going to ask my panelists to introduce themselves. Then we're going to go into a Slido question, but not until the panelists introduce themselves. So,
Thank you, Nicole. My name is Svanka Nanku. I'm the Global Head of Sales for Institutional Cash and Trade Finance at Deutsche Bank, and it's a pleasure to be here.
And you know me from this morning, James Rausch, RBC Capital Markets, Head of Global Transaction Banking.
And Georgia Anton, I head up payments for capital markets globally for CIBC.
Thank you. So, Slido. What's a panel without Slido? Here we go. What is your biggest concern about the future of leadership? Vote away. I'm going to give you a minute because I always call the race early. All right, look at that. Talent, recruitment, and retention. You're speaking my language. And theirs as well. They are all managers, and so we're certainly going to talk about this. Interesting that professional development and upskilling is beating out artificial intelligence and digitization. I think sometimes we're just tired about talking about it and hearing about it. So look, I hope today we will challenge you to think differently about your careers, what to do differently for recruitment and retention, and how to upskill or prepare yourselves, right? I thought there was a second Slido question. Am I wrong?
Oh, there is.
There you go. Do you feel equipped? Do you feel equipped to lead the workforce of the future?
Wow.
That's one person.
Really? I'm going to challenge you. This is why they asked me to moderate. Wow, close. I love it. Oh, wow. All right, the race is still on.
Come on.
Okay, if we were voting, we would tip the scale if we
Yes.
were going to say yes.
Yes.
What's your answer to it? Do you feel prepared? We're going to talk about this in a minute. I'm literally asking yes or no.
I will use the German word jein, which is yes and no.
Not fair.
I would say yes, because I think mentally I need to have the mindset that I am prepared, I'm going to continue to learn.
I'd say yes.
I'd say no, just to be the contrarian. All right, so look, let's get into it. We've got some questions that we've prepared. We've got some additional questions, and I really hope that you will throw some questions up for all of us. We are going to try to get to all of them. I am going to start with James. So, how do you think leaders, now, can I just preface something by saying, when I say leaders, I mean all of you. I'm not just talking about people who lead a team, lead a P&L, lead a region. You are all leaders. So when I say the word leaders, that's who we're talking about, each of you in your respective capacities. So how should leaders prepare themselves and their teams, if they have them, to leverage AI as a co-worker and strategic tool rather than as a replacement? Because I do actually think a lot of us are wondering, what do I do? I mean, what is my role going to look like? So give us an idea of what you think we need to be doing.
And I'm gonna steal a couple of words from the previous presentation.
Yeah.
And because to me, it's amplification and mindset. So AI, amplifies human judgment. It doesn't replace it. And so leaders who really know that difference are the ones that are going to succeed. And so we have to stop, either ourselves or people around us, we need to stop asking, will AI replace my job? And start asking, what does my job look like when AI handles the parts of the job that don't require me? So it really requires a mindset shift. There are different questions. And I think it's really thinking through, if AI is able to do some of the more mundane things of my job for me, how am I going to fill that time? Or what am I going to do with that time? And I think some of the things that we're kind of seeing in real time at RBC is we have aspirations to grow in the US. And if we actually look at trying to do that, or how do we do that? Well, we certainly can't hire the amount of people that it would be required to bring us to the scale of a larger bank. But what we can do is we can use tools like AI to make our existing workforce much more impactful and much more, be able to deliver more product, more client interactions than a comparable person somewhere else. And we're seeing that in the areas of research, for example, where it can take up to 60% less time for a research analyst to work on the report. So what do they do with that extra time? Well, one is they can spend more time with clients. They can make more calls, have client conversations. They can cover more companies. The analyst is still in the loop. That human piece is still in the loop. But we can now do more with that individual. And actually, the person that's doing that work is doing more work that's impactful for them. It's more enjoyable work. And so the judgment work that we required them for, that may have only been a small portion of the day, is now expanded. And it's important for us, when we look at AI, not just looking at the efficiency side, it's really that open mindset. That's why I said yes. It's like, how can we use these tools to free up our people to focus on the things that they're good at? And how can we then use that to support our growth goals as an organization? And so for leaders, this means two things. I think it's very important for us to give all of our teams the permission to sort of experiment, try, and fail. I don't know everyone's job, so I can by no means say, do this way or that way. So build in time to allow your teams to experiment and try, and they can fail safely. And then secondly, be explicit about our goal is not to do the same work faster. It's to do better work. And all of us should try to raise our bar, not our pace. And so if our teams are using AI just to do the same thing faster, I think we're missing the point. The question is, what becomes possible that wasn't before in the free time that we now have?
Thank you.
Do you mind if I chime in as well?
Please.
One of the things I think, and James touched on it, and actually it was in one of the Slido polls about strategic thinking. Yes. And James alluded to it when he talked about the research analysts, but really, if you think about it, that is, as a leader, that's one of the things that we struggle with most in terms of, How do you build talent? How do you ensure that the leaders of tomorrow can have that strategic mindset? And you can leverage these AI tools to think more broadly and do data scraping and data analysis, and then encourage and take that extra time that you have now to make sure that you share your knowledge and take a step back and encourage team members to think more strategically, because that's really what's going to drive our growth. That's what's going to lead to the step changes in our company and also industry going forward.
But don't you worry that AI can just do it for them? I mean, I'm pretty sure I can go to some app and say, I need to think strategically about what questions I'm going to ask my panelists. And it's going to give me better answers probably than I might come up with myself. So how am I improving my strategic thinking? Won't that just do it for me? And eventually, won't you just go to that app?
But the app won't know what is your bank strategy necessarily or where you're targeting growth. These apps are not foolproof yet. We know that they still generate hallucinations, all of these things. You look at the number of kind of what we call black swan events that we've had just in the last 5-6 years. These tools will get better and better. But the reality is you can't blindly rely on them. And you need to know as an organization where your strengths and weaknesses are, and that is the human element of it. And so you can't just accept everything it says. You need to ask the right questions, and you need to judge the answers that you're given.
So and by the way, none of these are on my cards.
Sorry, I messed up the order.
None of them are on their cards either. But my next question then is to you, because I think this is really relevant also to what came up on the Slido poll. Okay, fine. So what should everybody in this room do to improve their strategic thinking capabilities? Because at the end of the day, right, there will be so many technological tools that will enhance our performance, hopefully not eliminate our jobs. But as a result, I really do think, and I said this in the intro, the human piece of all of this, the strategic thinking, the leadership of people, and we'll get into a few more of them, and then I promise we'll go back to the script. What is the one thing that people should do and walk away with today to improve their capability and capacity for strategic thinking?
I can jump in.
Please.
So, when it comes to capacity, I think Georgia also rightfully pointed out, as well as James, that AI can be an enabler for us to free us up. I think as leaders, one of the things that we always complain about is, oh my God, I just don't have enough time to kind of sit and strategize and think strategically. So AI will definitely free us up if we allow it and allow for us to actually sit and have a thought about what the future should look like. AI can enable us with ideas, but I also think that you cannot just take any idea and plug it into whatever organization or institution you'd like, because institutions, as you said, have a different strategy, but above all, they have a different culture, different ethical standards, different objectives. They have a specific niche that distinguishes them from others and that gives them that competitive edge. And in all fairness, I do believe that the human in the loop in that case will play a very strategic role, a very important role to ensure that that is nurtured and that is developed even further. When I think about artificial intelligence, also leadership as well, genuinely, you cannot fire AI. You need somebody to be accountable, to own decisions, and that's going to be the leader. It will remain the leader. Machines cannot be held accountable, so they should never take decisions. And in my view, again, AI is a tool that will enable us, that will support us to be better at our roles, but it will not replace us.
And maybe before you move to the cards, because we've been talking about data literacy and strategic thinking. And when this came up in the previous presentation, it kind of surprised me that data literacy was so highly ranked. Because if you think of those two skill sets, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would think AI is going to be easier, like you can replace the data side easier, the data interpretation side easier with AI than strategic thinking. At least that's the way I think about it. And so for me, it's the softer things that I think are more important to be developed. And so I would challenge everyone in the room, if you voted for data skills and you think that AI can better replicate those skills that are lacking, then why did you choose that? I think it's
I'm a bit of a different opinion.
Oh, okay,
when it
well,
comes
let's
to
go away.
data. I do think that data literacy is extremely important, and being able to read and understand the data is critical. Very often also when I sit in meetings, we really kind of mix up causation, correlation. Data can show us results that we want to see. So how do you kind of take out that bias as well, your expectation bias in terms of what the data should show you? So I think it's tricky. I do think that, again, the human skill in terms of understanding, interpreting that data, taking out bias. I mean, we go accumulate data over a couple of years. Is that really representative for a whole lifetime? Do we need a bigger sample set? Is the data internally collected? Is it externally collected? I'm not a data scientist, but I spent quite a bit of time kind of trying to understand certain models and outcomes of them. And I do think that is a very critical skill, and is a very unique skill going forward that will be needed along with AI fluency.
Absolutely. And by the way, that is a leadership skill, asking questions. Curiosity and asking questions is a leadership skill. Now, for those of you who do know what I do and who I am, I'm an executive recruiter. And I have clients saying, curiosity is the #1 skill I need. And I think, well, okay, so somebody who asks you a lot of questions. Yes, actually, that is it. So to your point, I mean, what you're going to get out of an AI machine and an app is only as good as what you're going to put in, i.e. the quality of your questions and the data that you collect. And I really do think that is a huge, huge skill. Svitanka, if I could just stay with you for 1 second, just to talk about skills. Look, we've all talked about the rapid pace of technological change, besides asking questions and curiosity. What is a human skill that will become a true, what's another human skill that's a true competitive advantage for advancement for each of you?
I mean, look, I think it's going to be critical thinking. So if I'm to really think about who I want to hire on my team going forward, it's absolutely somebody who is going to challenge the status quo, who is going to ask extremely good questions. And I think that's extremely important now in the day and age of AI, because what is happening is you will still need IT experts to develop those AI tools, to govern the AI tools. We're building data centers. So you will need to, again, IT's team members to manage that infrastructure. But what is extremely important, in my view, is, again, that verification of all of the output of those models, the quality assurance. We're not yet seeing the full benefits of AI because we're applying them to specific tasks. But once we start reimagining the whole processes, trying to reap really the big benefits of AI, you will require that critical thinking, that visionary thinking, that takes you 5 years ahead, not even 5 years, 10 years ahead, and where you need to work backwards to figure out what you're required to get there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Georgia.
Yes.
We are going to do a question on card, but then there's another one there that I think leads me into the question I'm going to ask you. Can we talk about the multi-generational workforce? Mm-hmm. And what's one misconception that leaders have about managing a multi-generational workforce and what actually works? And along with that, we have a question, the one at the top. If a high-performing junior employee uses AI to outperform a more experienced manager, should that accelerate their promotion and disrupt traditional leadership progression? Would you tackle them both?
Sure, I'm happy to tackle them both. And it's interesting to us, in the old days, I'm going to say the old days, I think when people reached a certain age, they retired early and they exited. And there was a perception that they're done, they're not hungry anymore. And what we're seeing now is quite the opposite. We're seeing people extend their careers, reinvent themselves, leverage off that knowledge. And we find that very valuable, especially as the world of payments is evolving, be it digital assets, be it challenges in recruiting talent. That experience is so incredibly valuable. And so we've actually hired a number of people that traditionally you wouldn't have been hiring at this point in their career to lead teams, because as we go through this types of change, it is very helpful to have people that have seen a playbook, that know how to handle if your systems go down, if you have a bank failure, what is your kind of your war room immediate go-to path? And to also share that knowledge. They are probably more patient. They've had kids of their own or families. They've had a track record of building up talent. And as we think to the future and we think about the younger generations, which I think we all have challenges in terms of retention, you really need that layer at the top, those leaders that have an experience and a track record of building up talent, encouraging people to stay, to pivot, to continue to create that positive culture. So it's not just about number results. Can you deliver the number of results? Can you inspire? Can you invest in your talent pool? Can you, share that knowledge more broadly across the organization? And that's where that multi-generational type of workforce comes in extremely valuable. Because I think any of us, had you asked us at the beginning of 2020, are you going to see a market where you have COVID, oil trades negative, gold can't trade, goes to zero, then you have Silicon Valley Bank, then you have a war in Ukraine, then you have a war in the Middle East, all of these things, you need that playbook. Mm-hmm. And you need resilient leaders, you need people who don't panic, and it helps if you have experience.
Yeah. I fully agree. You absolutely need that diversity of thought, and the diversity of thought doesn't come only from gender diversity, doesn't come only from age. You really need people from different fields that come together, work together as one team to, again, manage the complexity that we're living through these days.
Yeah. The three personas that we're looking at, very different people, but the word diversity sort of jumped into my head there.
Would we be able to bring that Slido question back, the one that I asked of Georgia, because I'm of that generation, I don't remember what it said. Let's bring it back. Will you address it, or frankly, any of you panelists? Yep. I mean, the question was, and I do think this is a concern of leaders, if a high-performing junior employee is more fluent in technology than their manager, should that accelerate their promotion and disrupt traditional leadership progression? That's a tough question.
But I think you have to define, what do they mean by promotion? Right? Yeah. You can certainly be promoted into a more senior role, but just because they deliver, and that was my answer, just because you deliver number results doesn't mean that you actually have those interpersonal skills to lead. Yeah. You have to know how to take risks. You have to know, you mentioned people need to be held accountable. It's interesting to me, sometimes you see leaders, and when things go sideways, they're not comfortable making the call or taking the accountability. Those are all skills that, AI isn't going to teach a junior employee. Yeah. And so it's our responsibility to teach them that we don't look at promotion as, a one-dimensional, it's many different facets. And so, you can get promoted a little bit more quickly, but at some point you hit a ceiling unless you develop those other important skills and show that you can work with others and you can go outside your lane, so to speak. Are you really a flexible thinker? Do you encourage conversations, important innovations? Those are all ultimately what will get you to that managerial role.
No, I agree. That's because it's not about who produces the most widgets, right? I think, and I tell my team that, it's like we have to think beyond just the best performing person is the best person to be promoted. It may be, but if this person is using AI just to produce more widgets, I'd say probably not. But if they're using AI because they have a different mindset, they have an open mindset, they're exploring what's possible, then those are the types of ancillary skills that are important, and those are the types of skills I want to see in leaders. So
I agree with that. I mean, I run a sales team, and luckily I have 100 stellar performers on my team, which is great. But there's always one that kind of distinguishes themselves from others. And one thing I learned in my early days of my career was kind of the BAU and hard work gets you paid, but how you add value, right? Change really gets you promoted. And I've learned that by leading the teams and also just over the years, there are team members who work extremely hard, right, that par with each other, but there's the one that will come up with an amazing idea that's going to add value to the organization and can be replicated across the organization as well. So it's really about adding value and not just, I did this task better than somebody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think that goes also to what we heard in the previous session as well about one of the personas was the problem solver. I mean, you should all be asking yourselves every day in your jobs, what am I solving for today? And I see I see many people run around, perform, produce, and I ask people questions, well, what were you solving for? And they can't even answer the question. I mean, I really would challenge all of you to think, what's the problem I'm solving for today? What am I supposed to do? And I imagine this employee who stands out is a problem solver and understands that. So, in the time that we have left, we have several other questions on here, but I'm actually thinking we owe the audience answers to these questions. And I think a lot of what we prepared will weave into this, and they're coming fast. So I think the top one, how are each of you personally redesigning your roles before AI does it for you? That's assuming AI is going to do it and replace them. But let's talk about your skills as leaders of people and teams and yourselves individually. What are you doing to redesign your roles or to upskill or pivot as you think you need to?
Well, first of all, I don't think you can delegate kind of everything to your employees. You also just really need to develop that AI fluency a bit yourself. So my approach has been just try to learn as much as possible. Yes, through various online courses as well, by reading myself. But one of the things that Deutsche Bank also decided to do at the top of the house is mandate training for the top leaders of the firm, which is mandatory, and we'll do 3 days in person in London in conjunction with the London Business School. So really just reimagine yourself and redefine yourself as a leader by learning as much as possible about AI, because you don't want to be sitting in a room with people who are ahead of you, and they should be ahead of you, but without understanding what they're talking about. So I think one of the things I've tried to do is just learn as much as possible instead of delegating it all out to people who are so proficient.
And I think that's key, right? You have to kind of learn by doing. You need to understand it. And I think going back to the previous question, like when you want, as leaders, we really have to be conscious of our actions, right? If we're just delegating, if we think it's for widgets to be produced faster, if we don't show the vulnerability that the technology is moving so fast, there's no possible way that we can keep up with it. But we're still leaning in, we're still learning, we're still experimenting, we're still failing. I think it's important for us to kind of walk the walk. I think the only other thing I'll add to that is one of the things that we've been doing, I'm sure others as well, is like AI is included in sort of every meeting now. Like we're just talking about it, we're sharing stories, we're sharing what's worked, what's not. We've appointed we've had volunteer champions within the organization, and these are often junior people that just are really curious, and there's like a real spark there, and I learn from them. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah. Georgia?
I would say from our perspective, we were early adopters of kind of a ChatGPT. We built our own in-house ChatGPT that was perfectly firewalled several years ago, and it's changed a lot in the last 3 years, as you can imagine. But the other thing that we do is in certain pockets within capital markets, including in payments, at my leadership table, we actually co-locate with our technology partners, our senior technology partners. And so we have them there at our leadership payments. And as we're designing and building out new capabilities, we have them from day one, part of the discussion, along with risk, along with treasury. What type of data analysis would help all of our partners across the bank to unlock more potential, unlock more collateral, more funding, more liquidity, and so forth. So that co-location, sitting there shoulder to shoulder, but involving them early on in those discussions really allows us to unlock that potential of AI earlier on in the discussion and think bigger in terms of what we can do than just our certain niche.
So that sort of goes into the question of I want my leaders to be more innovative. As they become more familiar with using AI, is there a risk that they will become less innovative? I would say based upon what you just said, no.
No, and I mean we do a hackathon every year, and I know one of the questions on your page was, how do you keep these individuals motivated? And I think that's, as a bank, you have to be more innovative. And so, is it doing a hackathon, giving them more runway to grow, be willing to give them more funding? I do think a big part of it is the culture. If you give them a culture that's supportive, sometimes that's not a culture that they necessarily get at some of the fintechs or some of our competitors. The other thing as well is, we do need, and I know that came up in one of the Slido polls, oftentimes we do need to invest more into these types of individuals to have them understand the mechanics of a bank and our business, so that we can really harness that potential and have them think more broadly in terms of how they can leverage their skill set more across the bank.
I like the question, to what extent is emotional intelligence key to leadership? And is this sufficiently valued by those who are hiring? I think it's the most important thing.
I fully agree.
Frankly, it's the most important thing. Do I want to spend time with these people? Do you want to spend time with the company you're interviewing with? And that is part of emotional intelligence, but you can't lead without it. But I'm not the panel, please.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's fundamental. It's all those things that AI actually can't do. It's reading the room. It's understanding your client's concerns, empathy, authenticity. And so I would say I think we value it. I'm sure others as well. I think it also goes back to diversity. We can't just be hiring clones of ourselves. And so I think it's incredibly key. And when we look for people to promote, it's, I'll use the word soft skills, but it's those interpersonal skills that are really, really important beyond just the competence.
I would say too, it's really key to creating a culture of care and creating an organization where people give back to community. We do have a responsibility to give back to our communities, but also at the end of the day, we all have clients, and clients have good days and bad days. So to James's point about reading the room, sometimes you're not calling to ask for a trade or a piece of business. It's calling and asking, are you okay? I noticed this happened. And that's what builds those relationships that stand the test of time. And that's not something a machine, or if you're just looking for the quick dollar, you're ever going to get to that point. And it makes your life better, I think, as a human being, frankly.
And it speaks exactly to this last question on the bottom here. We need leaders to deeply think strategically. AI is bringing tools, reports, data, but we risk having wrong content. Well, then it just disappeared. But
well, and
you know what? You read it. But my point is, in other words, the emotional intelligence, the softer skills that are needed to deal with whatever it is that's being produced. Thank you. It's all about prompts. What do you think?
Yes.
I agree.
Yes, we think the same thing. Agreed. So no, I think that was a perfect end of that. These are really good questions, and I hate to impose on my panelists and go off schedule. But I really do think these are important. There was one about imposter syndrome. It's not here, but it is, the top one now. As AI becomes more embedded, how can organizations and leadership reduce the stigma or imposter syndrome employees may feel when relying on it? I think that's a really honest question. Thank you for whoever asked that question. Because I think these are the kinds of topics that we ought to be talking about. Would somebody like to take that one?
I think what we've been trying to do, and this is outside of AI, but one of my colleagues started this, we call them leader lounges, and we had all of our leaders come and have sort of informal talks to talk a little bit about their career journeys and get to know them better. And imposter syndrome came up quite often. I'm happy to talk about it. And so I think it's destigmatizing it, it's talking about it, and just understanding that does exist. All of us may feel it at some point, and that it's just part of our neuropsychology. Yeah, destigmatizing, it's fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say, look, based upon my experience as a banker and now as a recruiter, it's really uncomfortable to talk about things or admit to imposter syndrome. But can I just tell you, I do believe it exists in most people, even the people that you don't think it exists in. Somewhere there underneath is this anxiety and fear of, am I really as good as my title might indicate? Am I really as good as what I just produced? I just want all of you in the room to know, I feel you.
But you know, one of the things
We
that
feel you.
effective leadership also does is we talk about creating fellowship, right? And people all driving in the same direction towards the same objectives and goals. I think one of the things that I try to do is actually ensure that each employee on my team believes in themselves and that they can execute on that specific goal and objective. And I think this is really what distinguishes kind of one effective leader from a truly effective leader that can mobilize the troops because they believe in themselves and they genuinely believe in what we're looking to achieve. We assess people on the what, we assess people on the how, but really the why we do certain things and why we need to focus on them and why we as individuals are critical to the specific objective and agenda we're pursuing, in my view, is almost more important.
So what advice do you have out there for the individuals on teams and leaders of that individual who may not be feeling like they are valued,
well, look,
delivering?
So
what can people expect, do you think, from a good leader?
Yeah, so first of all, the role of the leader will be to identify that individual, right? And actually be able to talk to them and address some of the challenges they're facing. We very often fail our team members because we put them in roles where their skill set is not applied and used in the best possible way. And I think it's extremely important to ensure, especially now in this day of AI, where humans will have to work even more with machines, with robots, with AI agents, to really understand the skill set of the room, including all of those AI agents and robots and what they can do, and make sure that people are in the right roles. So, you know, maybe some of that uncertainty is really coming of that specific team member is coming from the fact that, you know, they might not be in the right role. So figuring out what is causing that is important, and making sure that, again, people are in the right position to support and contribute, in my view, plays a very significant role.
Maybe I'd add too, I think there is this fear of failure. And, you know, as a leader, you have to admit yourself, if you don't know something, if you want an explanation from somebody else, maybe it's the more junior people on your team. And so you talked about that curiosity. And that is important at all levels. Are you curious? Are you supporting? And as a leader, you often try to give up-and-coming rising stars stretch goals. But we should have that honest conversation and say to them, look, if you think that you're really struggling and you're in trouble, tell me, because I can come in and help you. But I want you to push yourself, because otherwise you're never going to have that step change. We have to take risks. We have to be okay with some level of failure. And for those individuals to not feel like, oh, I failed, I'm getting fired, right? That's the only way that we're really gonna support that talent in this process, and frankly, show them that we're willing to learn along with them on this path.
Yeah, agreed. There's a question at the bottom there. What advice do you have for employees whose boss may not be thinking about their career growth? How can they advocate for themselves? I do believe I remember that one. By the way, your boss is not thinking about your career growth. Your boss is thinking about their own career growth. Like, you know that, right? So that is true. Therefore, that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
Best way to advocate for yourself. So was our panel yesterday. Every week, every day, whatever works for you, you ought to be jotting down all of your successes, particularly if there is a financial impact to the business. So that when you have a conversation with your boss, who's really not paying attention and suddenly says, damn, we got to do a mid-year review. What are they doing? How are they done? They're good. You walk in there with data. You walk in there with information, right? I mean, isn't that more powerful to you as managers when somebody comes in and reminds you, frankly, of all the success that they've had, which frankly makes you look better.
Absolutely. I mean, I really think that you and employees, team members should really own and drive their own career development. Also, speak up, right? Be extremely clear about what you expect, what your aspirations are. Don't hint and hope, right? It's very difficult also for leaders to know what's in everyone's mind, right? So it's extremely important to be very clear in terms of your expectations. And then what the leader can do, what your manager can do, is help you get there, right? With a bit of direction, with a bit of support. But really, in your heart and in your mind, you are the best advocate for your own self, and you actually very intimately know what you want to achieve, but voice it out, right?
Absolutely.
Don't keep it in, because it's very difficult for people to get. So
This is
no
like the
thinking.
Oscars when the music comes
Yeah.
on and
But
Yeah.
so I think
we're still on
there's a-
acceptance speeches. We're
Yes.
not leaving.
Yeah.
Please.
No, I totally agree. You're your advocate. Don't assume people know what you want. Speak up. Be honest with yourself and with them.
I would say, but be open to feedback,
Yes.
right?
Oof.
And so
that's a
just
good
because
one.
you don't
Very
get
good
it
one.
what you want tomorrow, ask that next question. Okay, if I can't get it tomorrow, what do I need to do
Yes.
to get there?
Yes.
And you're much more likely to get there.
Sometimes
Absolutely.
patience.
Feedback is such a gift, getting it and receiving it. We have totally run out of time.
Yes.
We could have spent hours doing this. I would like to thank my panelists for their time, for their insight, for their expertise. And if you have a question that did not get answered, please feel free to approach any of us here, online, however you'd like to do it. You had wonderful questions. I thank you very much for your time, and thank you
you.
very much, panelists.
Thank you.